Hi everyone again. For the ones that were not here in the first talk this morning, I'm Andres Vargas. I'm Colombian. I've been working with the club, with FC Bayern, for the last 6 years and a half. I do business development and partnerships for the Americas, and the idea today is to present a case study that we did with Tigres. This talk was meant to be done by the VP of Tigres, Carlos, and me, but unfortunately he can't join us today. So I will just go and explain what we did and why it's relevant for this panel in which we're speaking about global football and the future of football globally. I just want to start with a video. I know that probably here everyone is familiar with the team, but it's just a video that shows to some extent who we are and what we represent. The video you will see is basically our brand video, what we try to show to potential partners, to give a glimpse of what we represent and short values on how we are so deeply rooted in Bavaria, which is the zone where the club is. But right now we're still a global property and a global team. I think we're ready.
FC Bayern, linked to success like Munich to the Alps, like Beckenbauer to number 5, like Muller to scoring goals. But that's just the beginning, because at FC Bayern, success means more.
Der FC Bayern steht für ein Miteinander und für Vielfalt.
Our members are not just a strong support base. They are the feeling of belonging. Our followers don't just follow us, they share our passion. Our history has never held us back. It always pushes us forward as an independent club.
Bayern München muss immer Bayern München bleiben.
Our fans support us and motivate us to do our best, everywhere and anytime. That's why we are committed to always giving back to them. We are one team, one club, one community, deeply rooted in Bavaria, uniting fans all over the world, on eye level and open to everyone who lives our values. We don't just inspire through our heroes. We have club legends and top scorers, no question, but what really lets us shine is our unity.
Deswegen seid ihr die besten Fans der Welt.
We stand together when we're up and especially when we're down, because we believe that we can achieve anything if we are one. We lead with heart and a commitment to our values, a commitment that is timeless, bigger than one player, one team, one sport, bigger than sports. So when it gets loud, that's just a symbol for our passion. We stay committed to our way and inspire others to join us. That's what has made, makes, and always will make us successful. We are who we are. Mia san mia.
All right. So, as a small introduction of the club, we are a club that has won every single trophy that we've played for. So yeah, we've won every single trophy that we've played for. Winning is in our DNA, but that's not all for sure. Obviously, that helps. We right now, thanks to many data softwares, know that there's more than 1 billion people in the world who are aware of our existence. That means that basically 1 out of 7 persons in the world are aware of who FC Bayern is. In South America, we have 107 million people who know who we are. In the US, we have 32. obviously Germany and Europe. But with this data, it's again a proof of concept that we're a global property, and therefore we need to also attend the audiences outside Germany. That's the reason why the club decided to open an office 10 years ago in the US and try to connect with the different football fans and the football audiences around the world. Today, we have 3 international offices, one in the US that serves for the whole Americas continent. We have one in Shanghai, and we have one in Thailand to serve the Southeast Asian audience. I brought this close look up to Mexico, and the reason why I did that is because I'm going to explain why we did an activation and a partnership with Tigres. So Mexico is one of our focus markets. Brazil is also one of our focus markets. But when you start an internationalization process, you need to be aware that all markets are different. It's not the same to try to internationalize your brand in the US than in Mexico or here. In the US, we are more focused on the growth of the sport, the growth of football. We are seeing that trend already. The World Cup obviously is helping, and the conversation of football in the US is growing, but that market is very much saturated. They have other top sports, and their normal sport fan is not necessarily a football fan. Football as we think of football, not American football. So there, the work that we need to do is more an awareness work and try to work with the stakeholders in the growth of football. That's how we've been trying to position ourselves in the last 10 years. Then in Mexico, you have a mix or a cocktail of 2 things. One, you have the same consumer behavior in the US. That's because they are very close to the US. And for a sports fan in Mexico, it's not so weird to be fan of their local team as any Latin American, but they're also like to be fans of NFL, MLB, NBA. So they're not so, for them it's not so weird to support international teams. They have the best ratings of Champions League per capita. Obviously in quantity, Brazil is better. And for example, in the last 10 UEFA Champions League finals, there's been 12,000 Mexicans going to every single final. So you have a combination. And then in Brazil, well, we know here that we will never be bigger than Flamengo, Palmeiras, Corinthians, Mineiro. We are not trying to do that. Here, we want to serve the audience because here the sports fan is very much attached to football, and even though there's a huge awareness and likeness of European football, the normal Brazilian football fan feels for their home team and for their national team. That's the truth. You guys follow other players, yes, internationally. You guys like good football. That's why you guys like Champions League. But that doesn't mean that you will feel more for a European team than for your local team. So that's an example on how we try to internationalize differently in every single part and focus market that we have. I brought Mexico just because Tigres is from Mexico, and I'm going to explain the case study. Here you can see that there's a huge awareness. We've never had any Mexican player in our history. That's very different from Brazil. From Brazil, we've had 14 players in the history of our club, and until 2022, there was a run of 23 years in which we had a Brazilian every single year in our team. I hope that that changes very often, and again, and we have Brazilian in our team because we miss the natural connection with this amazing market. Taking advantage of the Club World Cup in 2020, and knowing that it was the first Club World Cup for Tigres, and understanding that they also want to grow internationally. And the reason why they want to do that is because with Mexican teams, as well as the national team, something very weird and unique happens. And it's that they have two markets. They don't only have their own market, but given the immigration of Mexicans in the US and second generation of Mexicans in the US, Mexican football actually is the most watched football in the US, more than Premier League, more than Champions League, more than any other league. So the most watched league is the Liga MX. So if you're a Mexican team, makes sense to internationalize. First, looking into the US because it's a natural market for you. It's not so unfamiliar. You will have an audience that actually wants to consume you, but you can just translate what you do in Mexico because that audience consumes differently. So since they were going to the first Club World Cup, they also want to do that. We wanted to take advantage of the Club World Cup. In that Club World Cup, we also had some activations with Palmeiras. But Tigres actually won the semifinal and went to the final. Before the Club World Cup, we did some efforts, and actually we put together a talk between Lucas Hernandez and André Paul Guignac, both French players that speak Spanish, and it was very easy for the market. We immediately knew that this was a clean way of doing something different to engage and at least generate attention. We were very lucky that the final actually was Tigres FC Bayern. In that sense, luck played our way. And then after the game, they changed jerseys, and actually they created a friendship after this. But with this, we were able to strengthen the connection and the storytelling of our internationalization process. But what we always try to say, and I was telling this earlier, is we as a German club have two natural barriers, the language barrier and the cultural barrier, when we are trying to internationalize our team. German, it's not a common language, and the German culture, it's not a common culture. So for us, doing stuff, it's not one-off and then we move on. We try to do stuff with purpose, and that to some extent stays, because that's the only way in which we can guarantee the engagement. So after this talk, after playing against them, after this effort, we start talking with the Tigres executives, and the idea first was to bring FC Bayern for the first time to Mexico, because we thought that was going to be great. We wanted like the rematch of the final. I don't know if you remember this, but that final was was not easy. It ended up 1-0, and the Tigres fans were a little pissed. So we wanted to do a rematch in their home, because it makes sense for them. Will show that they were an international team capable of bringing a European team. And for us, it will be just a proof that we can go to other markets in America like Mexico. At the end, that didn't work out, but we ended up with an amazing solution that also helped us very much with our internationalization process and trying to get different points or key talking points that allow us to tell that our internationalization process is successful. And we came up with a game between our women's team in Monterrey. This was the first time that our team went abroad and actually traveled outside Europe. This was the first time that our professional women's team played in front of 35,000 people, and we actually lost the game. But again, if we only do this, like we said, okay, it's just a game, it's a friendly, then we move on. So after this, we said, what else? And we worked on a So we worked on a partnership with them. We signed an MOU in which, because of the friendly, we said, okay, what more efforts can we do? And we ended up signing this MOU in which we agreed that 3 youth players of their professional teams were going to go to Germany on a regular basis, on a yearly basis, to get the best of the European football and to get a real experience of what a European football and a European team is. With this agreement, we aim to consolidate again an internationalization process, but also approve that we were just not doing one-off stuff, and we were out. Like, we are committed to the market. We want to work with the best stakeholders, and we want to generate impact that leads to generate awareness and engagement of what we are doing. This way, this partnership also allows us to connect directly with Mexican football, which is it's trending, and with the World Cup coming, makes a lot of sense for us. More if we're trying to tell the world that in the US we're trying to help the growth of the sport. So that was the reason why we signed this. And then this is the second year that we're executing this agreement. And we've seen already a huge success. 3 players went last year to Munich to train with our team, to have the best experience they could. We did a little docu-series about it where they were saying that this was the best experience that they have ever had. They didn't imagine the sophistication of the women's football industry in Europe. And this is a life-change moment for these players, because these players now will understand, before going abroad, how to see and play in Europe. And that's what we're trying to aim for. So basically, after 2 games, 1 official and 1 friendly, we were able to do a little effort and change life, but also serving our purpose of an internationalization process. This year, we're already working on a new set of players to go. We were very fortunate, for example, that Tigres is also an Adidas team. So that was an easy point of contact also between teams, and we worked with them to guarantee that, for example, in the docu-series, they were featured in a good way. But this was just an out of the box solution for our internationalization process that allow us to have a very clean way of entering a market with a huge stakeholder. And that's it. I don't know if anyone here have a question or a comment, something that you guys want to say.
Hi, I'm a huge fan of Bayern. I want to know what's the impact of a trophyless season on the whole FC Bayern system.
Well, obviously impacts, but to be completely honest, after winning 11 trophies in a row, I think it's refreshing. Because if we won more and more and more, then people would say that we never lose and that the Bundesliga is a farmers' league. So I think for the league, it's actually very refreshing. We as a team, fortunately, are very stable financially. So that obviously it does have an impact, but not so much, fortunately. Obviously, it's better to win. At the end, football is a game, and who wouldn't like to win everything? But you also have to understand that that's only a part of, it's a game at the end, and your operation cannot be based on the trophies that you win, because winning is the end of a process. It's not, and it's just a result. It shouldn't just rule the way you operate a company if you want your sport organization to be an actual company. So obviously it hurts. Obviously for our fans it's very tough. But from a financial standpoint or from a strategic standpoint, it doesn't have any impact.
From what I understood of the panel, the partnership between Bayern and Tigres is more like a marketing partnership. I understand this way, like Bayern receive attention from America and the other side. But there is an advantage expanding this partnership to a more football-like partnership, like exchanging players, exchanging points of view in how to develop a player, things like that. What is the difference, and does Bayern is interested in this or no?
Yes, I mean, the purposes of this obviously have a sport purpose because we are changing the lives of youth players, and these youth players will be leaders in their teams, and actually the best players of their category were the ones who went. So there's actually a sport side of it, and obviously if these players were good enough, like we wouldn't not take advantage of it. If you're asking me about multi-property, we actually also signed a deal with LAFC, and we have a joint venture. And with that joint venture, we've bought 2 teams, one in Austria and one in Uruguay. It's the future. Our fans, unfortunately, don't like it so much. Makes sense. But we also need to be very intelligent in how the future is looking like.
Well, first of all, I want to congratulate you on both of your panels. I think it was brilliant. And I'd like to ask about the Brazilian relationship because if I remember right, in 2019, the Bayern Legends team played a competition here in Brazil, and the final was against São Paulo, if I'm not wrong. And there's also many instances of the social media team of Bayern here in Brazil interacting with a lot of clubs, not only one club, but I remember when my team, Mineiro, how you guys call it, won the Brazilian championship in 2021. If I remember correctly, Bayern Munich and the social media congratulated Mineiro, and this happened a lot of times. And I think how different is from Mexico the relationship between Bayern and the clubs here in Brazil in this way to try to broaden the audience here in Brazil, because as you said, we don't have this habit of actually supporting teams from Europe. We usually see those teams as just a second option that we don't actually buy things, but maybe this could change in the newer generations.
That's a great question. Yes, you're absolutely right. In 2019, we were invited by Sao Paulo to play with our legends at Morumbi. It was actually a very nice activation. We have a lot of Brazilian legends, so it makes sense. Brazil is the country with more Instagram supporters and social media supporters outside Germany. So it's like the #1 country outside Germany where we have more fans. We, as an international office in New York, fought very much to get our Portuguese channel in Twitter, precisely because of what you mentioned. Like, we wanted to be more present and more aware, and I think we've done it in a very nice way. It's a very fun account, and there's fun content, and that's like the way that we want to do it. We want to serve our audience here. Also on Instagram, if you pay attention to the account, there's a lot of geolocalized content that speaks in Portuguese. That's something that we work on from our international office. We were trying to make aware Munich that Brazil is a very important market for us and actually for the club. It is different from Mexico because of the consumer behavior. Here, we respect the fans very much, so we just don't want to spread the word and just like say, oh, you should support FC Bayern and forget everything else. We try to do it in a more clean way, and we try more to serve the fans that we have, and we have a lot of fan clubs. So we work with them a lot on the back, like we support their viewing parties, and we support them on different levels. But our strategy is not being the number one team. We just want to be here, want to be present, want to make sure that people are aware of us. And in that sense, if we are able to sign partnerships regionally, why not? We are working right now on generating a better return of investment. For example, ratings here are very good. More when we are in public networks. At some point, our games were featured and shown in one football app that didn't end up so well, but we were just trying to see different options. So yeah, it's very different, and with Brazil, it's a market that we respect a lot, and we are still trying to increase our value here to be able to be more relevant and work better in this market. Obviously respecting the other teams that we have a great relation with. Flamengo, at some point we did a conversation between Gavi and Lewandowski that went viral. At some point we did stuff with Palmeiras, obviously we have Ser Roberto. I mean, we've been trying to do a lot of things, but we come to this market in a very respectful way because we understand the challenges that we have.
Good afternoon. So German football has always been really connected to enterprises, but actually national enterprises like Wolfsburg and Volkswagen, Bayern, Leverkusen. And German football fans are really connected to like tradition. They are really resistant to international investors. We've seen what happened to RB Leipzig when they play away, with Hoffenheim when they tried to sell the club, with Hertha Berlin as well. So in this point, how do German fans react and interact to this other way around, to Bayern trying to internalize itself and get into other leagues and countries? How is like the fan reaction? Because we see like the games always being the same time, like Sunday 11 o'clock, and there's this big debate between Bundesliga changing its habits to international market. So how do FC Bayern fans react to it, and how to internationalize without losing tradition?
Well, actually the teams that you mentioned are an exception. In 1998, Bundesliga allowed teams to look for investment, but still at least 51% of 50 plus 1% of the shares of the club need to be owned by fans, so socios. We actually have 300,000 socios. So actually, it's not so common that German clubs are owned by enterprises. It's only Leverkusen, Wolfsburg, and Leipzig. The first two, it's because there was an exemption in the law in which if the company was involved in the team for more than 20 years, then they could own it. So it's actually still very much people's game, and that's one of the challenges that we have. Bundesliga is very conscious of that, and they try to preserve a lot of things. Like, for example, the Bundesliga ticket for a game is the lowest in any European top league. You can still find tickets for 17 euros. So I think that that's very impressive. In terms of internationalization, you're right. I mean, there's still a lot of things to do. I think Bundesliga is on the right track. German fans are unique, but I think they're very similar actually to the fans in South America, because they actually feel and they like to own their team. But I think they're on the right track. They're doing good things. They're trying to spread the word a little more, and that's why I was saying that actually a team like Leverkusen winning is refreshing and at least brings the attention. Everybody knows that Leverkusen won last year, and that's good for the league. Perfect. Okay, guys. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure for me to be here. Muito obrigado.